So we're going to do some introductions, tell you who's who and how they can help. Take some time to introduce Contain. I appreciate most of you already know who we are, but do you know what we do and how we can actually add value to what you do? We'll then cover the reason you're here, get a better understanding of why you need our application management service, what's special about it, and how it works, and more importantly, how it aligns with your strategic objectives. If you have any questions, as I mentioned, please type them in the chat bar and we'll address them at the very end when we'll discuss the next steps and a call to action before giving you the delivery voucher. So I'll quickly introduce the team one by one and ask each one to say hi so you can put a voice to their name. So I'm Stephen Clayton, I'm the sales director at Contain. I work alongside Ben Paddock, who's our technical director, and he'll be walking you through the presentation today. Do you want to say hi, Ben?
Hello.
We've also got Nigel Lambert. He's my counterpart and the sales lead for this service. Do you want to say hi, Nigel?
Morning, gentlemen.
Dan Goff, who's the technical lead of this service. Do you want to say hi, Dan?
Hi all.
And we're here to talk about application management, which bridges modern workplace and cybersecurity services, helping you deliver applications in a reliable and secure and efficient way. But to briefly introduce Contain, our experience has led us to the creation of this value chain, which enables us to add value to your business at any stage of the service delivery cycle. We work in a more of a systems integrator role. We provide support and assistance through every step of the journey, from strategy development to design and build projects to enhancement of existing applications, infrastructure and security operations. We then support you with delivery through program and project management and support the build activities. With people like Ben, we align ourselves to your technical governance and architecture teams, helping you define your technical roadmap, lifecycle plan, and architecture goals, all with one view, to create a great service to you and your end users. So how do we do it? We have a great team, we have a great network of people and partners who have expertise in all of the technologies listed on the image, and we can guarantee their quality of outcomes through our leadership. We have skills around the services in the center, so everything on the image of the cloud, and partner with the people on the right, so the orange squares. Around the outside is a sample of some of the projects that we can assist you with. And that concludes my part of the introduction. So I'll hand you over to Ben now to run through the application management service. Thank you.
Okay, can you see me okay?
Yep.
Right, thanks Steve. Right, so we are now on to the main part of the webinar, okay? I am going to take you through some of the pain points and challenges that you might face when working with application packaging, application delivery, and the service management process that supports that. We're going to look at some of the common pain points, so we're going to set some of the common goals and objectives that you might want to set as part of your application maintenance strategy. We're going to run through some enabling actions that enable you to correctly scope and operate the application maintenance service in a way that enables you to achieve those strategic goals and objectives. We're then going to provide an overview of the service, how it works, how you embed it into your teams, and provide that outward excellent service that Steve spoke about earlier. Then we're going to finish with an overview of the different procurement options and how you enable it in your organization. Okay, so next slide, Ben. Let's go next. Okay, so pain points. So I'm sure many of you have pain points. I know every day I get older, I find new ones in my body, but IT is much the same. The biggest one I would say is service management. We all know there's a shortage of packaging skills in the IT industry. We know companies don't have enough time to create responsibilities or individual people sole responsibility for application packaging. As such, we typically see a low investment into training or an ability to create opportunities where they gain real experience through working on different packaging and deployment scenarios. Without this exposure, it's hard to truly develop a set of best practices or gain the skills and experience that enables them to be an expert in their field. Also, many people don't really want to do application packaging. It's not the sexiest of activities in the world of IT these days. There are way more interesting challenges and problems that many of us can go and solve. Without using certified or experienced professionals, application packaging can definitely be inefficient and worse, expensive. With so much else going on, time to do app packaging is also kept to a minimum. This causes application packages to be rushed in between other tasks and duties. The end result is it creates a deterioration in quality. Documentation for the application packages may be missed. Post-application testing may be done in part, or worse, left for end users to complete themselves. The result is that applications then end up containing errors in either the deployment process or functionality doesn't work as expected. This means applications have to be repackaged, retested, re-released again until those errors are resolved. The impact here is that this takes time away from IT and time away from the end users who need those apps. Without time available to work on application packaging activities, departments tend to deprioritize this. This, as we know, obviously with a lower priority, can extend those delays for when applications can be released. Traditionally, application updates didn't have to be released as frequently. It was only when you needed to use new features or fix compatibility issues. However, today, vendors now release critical updates to patch known security vulnerabilities. And we've been monitoring the advice from the UK government that says all critical updates should be deployed within a 14-day window of release. This in itself adds further demands on IT. If you did not have the resources previously to package, test and release to get features out to people, you're not going to have the resources required to remediate the security vulnerabilities as they're being detected today. So in summary, if you haven't got the resources to be able to deploy applications for patching issues or compatibility or new features, you end up affecting both productivity and putting the organization at risk of security vulnerabilities. Right now, we're seeing many organizations modernizing their workspace. We're seeing them move from legacy architectures of authentication like Active Directory to Azure AD. We're seeing configuration management and application delivery moving from SCCM to Intune. And we're seeing new operating systems being deployed, such as Windows 10 and 11, and also companies considering the use of cloud-hosted virtual desktop infrastructure like Azure. However, moving to these cloud-enabled architectures requires both the operating system, the configuration controls to all be modernized and changed. As a result of that, you also need to change a majority of the application packaging formats that you was previously using to deploy your apps. Now you need to introduce new things like AppV or the newer MSIX technology. Doing this enables you to deliver the applications via the internet in a clean, safe, and reliable way, and make use of new delivery capabilities like application streaming. With many projects going on, it creates a high demand on our business as usual IT teams. It can be difficult for us to allocate the time required to scale up to meet the new project or the new technology needs. We have to factor in time for training, upskilling, knowledge transfer, all whilst trying to triage and resolve the issues that the teams were facing before the project started, plus the new issues that the projects create themselves. Many organizations also have increased the robustness of their information security governance. We now see policies that stipulate how organizations need to reduce the attack surface of the organization as a whole. As such, we now see an array of new security tools that scan the network and the endpoints, detecting vulnerabilities in both software libraries and configuration. This creates a backlog of vulnerabilities that you need to triage and plan for remediation. The reports of these tools are also made visible to our senior levels of business, of management, as part of an overall risk management reporting framework. This adds pressure to IT, as IT teams now need to be able to deliver packages with configurations embedded, test those, and get them out inside that 14-day advice plus also before management starts to be concerned about why they're not being able to keep up with the backlog. Scaling up our internal teams to meet all these new demands is hard work. We know a lot of time is spent on advertising and interviewing candidates, only to find that the budget available is not enough to secure true experts, the people that really can add value in this specialist field. And if you are lucky enough to find people, then we also see that actually maybe they don't want to work in traditional environments anymore, like offices or in areas of the country with high cost of living. The way around that is also to sometimes consider using cheaper, lower labour costs. Unfortunately, what we also see with these options is these people do not pass UK vetting procedures. Maybe they don't have the right permits to work in the UK without sponsorship, or they don't clear the relevant security vetting required to work in industries like healthcare, education, defence, or other areas. Okay, let's change slide. Right, so as mentioned earlier, we are seeing a lot of clients considering moving from SCCM to Intune. For many people now, this is either this year's goal or the goal of next year. Moving from SCCM to Intune is not actually that straightforward. It does require you to have a formal process. Sorry, 1 second. In essence, you need to review your source system. You need to take stock of your legacy applications, determine the state of maintenance of those, how far behind they are with major or minor updates. And you also need to find all that critical configuration information that was hopefully held in documentation that informs you on what you need to do to license them, deploy them, and install them correctly. Once you have all this mandatory information, obviously you can start the preparation phase where you go through each individual application and evaluate them for the new requirements to deploy and install them either on Intune or modern operating systems. If you haven't updated the application catalog in a while, you're going to be faced with that backlog I spoke about earlier. Obviously, this is the time to deploy those updates. You're going to need to do that to remediate security issues, but you're also going to need to probably do that to patch compatibility with modern operating systems or environments. Intune also has some known gotchas. It doesn't do installation the same way as SCCM did. As such, you do need to apply things like wrapper technology that enables you to create in-path configuration changes or user interface changes that streamline that installation process, giving a good user experience. Obviously, we can help you during the entirety of this transition. We can help update the documentation for you. We can help you define and develop the applications following best practices. And we can also help you with the actual end user deployment, pushing packages out into Intune and preparing them ready for user acceptance testing. If you use a service like ours, as described earlier, during any kind of project, it really enables you to focus on the other aspects that are more important. Stakeholder management, or the actual Avil project technical activities, or focusing on managing those issues that come out of this new project. Okay, at this point, I'm going to hand over to Dan. He's going to take us through some of the considerations of the modern application packaging technologies. Dan, over to you, please.
Hi, everyone. So modern application deployment, or application virtualization, or containers, however you want to describe it. Why do we need it? What's wrong with the traditional setup XC or the MSI based deployment that you are probably used to deploying with SCCM? So traditional application installers can run any arbitrary code that can do literally anything to your system. They can run executables that can change security settings, or they can cause other problems on install or uninstall. Also, some apps have got no enterprise-friendly silent installer, or no means to pre-configure the application when you deploy it. You may have to repackage apps or reverse engineer to extract the configuration settings that you need to apply. Installers can add or remove files and registry keys wherever they like, which can cause conflicts with other apps. And uninstalling an app can remove shared files that break another app, or it can leave stuff behind, which over time will junk up your system. Installation can take a long time and use up a lot of disk space. The app will need to be streamed down to the machine first and then installed. It takes up twice the space that it would really need to. Installation can be unreliable, the setup exe files that may run can be a black box, and it may return a random error code with no log file to indicate why it failed. Updates can be troublesome. You might require custom scripting to ask the user to close an application first before you go and update it, for example. Conflicts mean that you can't run multiple versions or multiple configurations of the same app side by side. And in VDI scenarios, where everybody wants to boot from a common image, you either need to install all of your apps into one big image and mask them, or maintain multiple images, which is a bit of a nightmare to maintain. So what is it? The main examples from the Microsoft camp are AppV and MSIX. They're both included in the operating system these days and are free to use, although AppV does require the Enterprise Edition, which most people are running. The application is stored in a container with all the application files and registry entries it needs, all stored in one place, and then redirection rules fool the app into thinking it's installed where it should be and allow it to find all the resources that it's looking for in the places where it's searching. So the main advantages of such an approach: you've got a standardized format, so everything is declared in a manifest file. There's no need for custom code to set up common integrations and things with the system. Applications can be captured and configured without needing to figure out the silent install commands or work out which config files you need to include with the package. And since everything's stored in one place, you can remove that application cleanly and safely without breaking anything. Applications can be deployed very rapidly. You can publish the shortcuts in mere seconds, attach the application with the rest of the data just streaming down in the background on demand. Disk space is minimized. There's no need to download the entire installer and then run something else. Also, MSIX uses deduplication technology, so if two apps share the same file, it'll only keep one copy on disk. Updates also will just pull down the deltas, the differences between version 1 and version 2, rather than pulling down the entire thing. Isolated containers mean that you can run multiple versions or multiple configurations, such as live, dev, UAT, etc., of the app together side by side on the same machine. And because you've now separated your apps from the OS, combined with the rapid deployment, means that you can now have a minimal core VDI image if you're running in a thin client scenario, and the apps are attached and streamed down on demand when the user logs on. And the last point is security. The MSIX packages are signed and the contents are verified for launch. Which all sounds great, but what are the disadvantages? So application compatibility is the main one. Many apps are unsuitable for conversion, or they might appear to work only to discover later on that there's some functionality broken. Hopefully you'll find that during testing and not in production. Integration is another bugbear. Since the apps are isolated, this provides challenges where apps need to be able to see each other and to integrate with other apps. Microsoft Office being a prime example. If an application has an Office or an Excel add-in, Excel won't be able to see it unless you take steps to link them together. Complexity. So while many apps are very simple to package, there's lots of hidden configuration with these technologies and lots of undocumented workarounds needed to get some of these apps to work. Support. Teams will need training on how to install, remove, and repair and troubleshoot these packages. And also that application vendors may not support you if you repackage one of their apps in one of these formats and then you end up having a problem. So one thing that we're hearing a lot of is AppV is dead. We need to move to MSIX straight away. Can you help us? And we have to slow people down, because even though Microsoft have released MSIX as the successor to AppV, at present it still needs twice the effort to get half the results in terms of application compatibility. Microsoft's aim was to have vendors start producing MSIX natively, so you wouldn't have to repackage stuff. But several years on, we're still seeing little traction, and even from Microsoft themselves, Microsoft issue hardly any of their own software in this format. And Microsoft have announced the end of life date for AppV 5.1 in April 2026. However, the AppV client has now been baked into the OS, into Windows 10, Windows 11, and Windows Server, and it's no longer version 5.1, it's version 10.x. And we can expect it, therefore, to be maintained as long as the OS is supported. So this April 2026 deadline is actually an end-of-life date for the old versions of AppV that you install on Windows 7 and Windows Server 2012, which themselves are considered legacy. The only part that is perhaps going to be unsupported after that date is the AppV management server, for which there are alternatives available, such as SCCM, or there's a third-party one too. So how can we help? We are experts in AppV and MSIX, and we've been providing packaging, consultancy, and training services for these technologies since they were first released. We can provide guidance on which type of applications are suitable and unsuitable, and training on how to support them. And we can set up a proof of concept to start you onto your journey into either of these technologies, perhaps starting with AppV and gradually moving on to MSIX as the compatibility increases and they add more features to it. And then I think we're going back to Ben for this remaining slide.
Thank you, Dan. Am I back on screen? Can everyone see me? Perfect.
Covering your bullet points.
Okay, I'll stand slightly to one side and read them out for you. Okay, brilliant. Thanks for that, Dan. So look, right now, what we're going to do is show you an overview of how the application packaging service works. I'm going to go through the process of how a single app is packaged and released to your environment. So basically, at the start, we will host an application discovery workshop with your teams. This is where we better understand how the applications need to work inside your environment. We agree on things like the standards for application packaging. We capture how the application needs to be configured. We look at things like licensing, the distribution, and the installation sequence. Our teams then provide you with guidance and advice on how we can streamline that process to incorporate any of the best practices that they've factored in from their previous engagements. We agree on the timescales and resources required by both organizations to complete this activity. Obviously, we will do the packaging work, but you need to be involved in that whole user acceptance testing and feedback loop to make sure the application packages work as described. So we agree on the timescales and resources. We then start the application package itself. At this stage, our teams will log on to either virtual machines you provide or computers that are connected to your environment that we provide and use the various application packaging tools to apply those custom settings, develop any automation steps required to improve that end user experience during the installation process itself. They then do basic unit testing and test that the applications install correctly, that there are no errors during the running of the applications, and then we give them back to you via integration of the package into your own deployment tool. So actually, we could put that into SCCM or into Intune. At this stage, you are ready for end user acceptance testing, and you will manage that directly with your users. So you can now put people into the deployment groups, have the applications installed, and then capture any feedback from them on any issues found. We can then incorporate that into updates to the applications. So if you do a bit of testing, find there's a problem, we can repackage the application to fix that. Once testing is complete, we will provide a full set of documentation, including all the configuration items, and that's given to you so that you can sign off the application as being production ready. Now you just use the same application in your deployment tools to scope it for a different user group and roll that out into production. Let me just move across slide. Right, so with so many applications requiring updates on a frequent basis, using a manual process like the one I just described is not always efficient. As such, we do have another service available. It's called AppAffinity. The benefits of using this service is that you don't need to wait for us to do the application updates for you. This happens automatically. And then the applications are pushed into AppAffinity, ready for you to distribute via your own tools. All you have to do is log on to the AppAffinity portal, select the applications that you want to use in your own environment, configure the control groups, so align them to things like Active Directory, and the application deployment schedules. So give them a time window after release to go to UAT, so maybe 7 days, and then maybe a 14-day release into production groups. It does require you to have some configuration assets in your environment. You need an agent in your organization on a VM that can pull down the data from AppAffinity and push it into Intune or SCCM. But the benefits of this are that it frees up a huge amount of time. You don't have to worry about engaging with us with manual application packaging activities. And you know that for these applications, the application updates are going out in a very short time frame with minimal fuss. There are some downsides. This only works to a specific number of applications in our catalog, which we can share with you. And the applications don't contain any configuration data themselves. They are generically packaged for deployment, but any configuration needs to be done in post-deployment activities like group policy objects or stuff like that. Okay, so slide. Right. So as you can see, we are experts in application packaging. Dan and the team there are amazing, right? But we're also pretty good at developing and executing an IT strategy. So we can work with you to understand what your organizational goals and objectives are. We can help you identify some of those potential problems and blockers that are going to stop you from achieving those. And then using a combination of workshops and inventory tools, we can help you truly evaluate the current state of your application portfolio in terms of versions, out-of-date updates, those that are missing critical updates and might contain security issues. Using us to help you do this process enables you to get an accurate assessment of the time and level of skill and complexity required to treat that backlog in an efficient way. This helps us truly then build a picture of the demand on you and your organization to maintain that application maintenance. We can then use that demand plan to basically ascertain whether you are capable of delivering that through self-delivery capabilities or whether it would be much better achieved by outsourcing it to an organization like ours. Obviously, it's worth pointing out, though, that there is still a level of involvement from both parties. It's more of a cooperation more than a complete level of outsourcing and ownership. Financing, we can help you with a budget. We will give you as part of the proposal an end-to-end budget for both the proof of concept and also the full service options. Obviously, buying a service is a starting point. For it to be effective, it has to be embedded. Now, we can work with your teams to do several things here. We can help you design the end-to-end service management process. So how you request applications, how you get them packaged, how you do the testing, how you do the release to make sure that's efficient. We can also work with your delivery teams to make sure that the onboarding of this service is also effective. We sit with your service design managers, we sit with your technical teams. We can even provide you with project management to control all the interactions and gateways in that journey. Service objectives. So I'm going to quickly recap on what most of you probably see as the objectives for an enhanced application management service. First and foremost, it's all about enhancing the service that you provide to your end users. And we can do this by supplying you with a service correctly sized to meet that demand of your business. And again, it's all about providing those highly skilled resources who really know how to get the job done right first time. And working with us in a process that's been designed and iteratively improved upon, we can make sure that it's done with high quality and also inside the service levels that you set with your business. Secondly, we want you to be able to meet those security objectives and requirements that your company sets. We can fundamentally help you lower that risk of application vulnerability by getting those critical updates in a 14-day SLA. Thirdly, we want you to be compliant with your own policies. We all know that you're working on certifications like Cyber Essentials, ISO 27001, or have other industry requirements that all have a heavy focus and reliance on a proactive patch management capability to reduce those vulnerabilities. Ultimately, we want you to be more productive. We deliver high quality applications to you that you can pass to your end users first time. Doing this means you suffer no productivity loss at the end user's level or in the IT department, as you have to go through and do application packaging activities on multiple occasions. Overall, we believe the cost of this service is far less than the impact of not having these objectives in place in your organization. So what does a service release plan look like? So in the first week, we're going to work with you to scope out the applications for the proof of concept. Typically, this can be 4 or 5 applications of different sizes and complexity. In fact, Dan has taken it on himself to dare me to say this, but he wants you to give him his 5 worst applications, the ones that are most difficult, just so you can see how him and his team fare. We also agree on the process, how you request the application packaging, how we do the packaging, how we interact with the systems, how we get it out through the deployment tools. We also look at the minimum requirements, such as network access, virtual machines, and the relevant role-based access controls on our accounts to do those activities. We will then give you a proposal and a statement of works for the proof of concept. This will help you understand what we're all going to do, what the success criteria looks like, and more importantly, what the cost of the proof of concept is, because you need to obviously get that approval. In the second week, we aim to get the proof of concept going. Here we will start with you deploying those prerequisites into your environment. We then work with you to do the different application discovery workshops, capturing all that information required to complete the packaging activities. We can then test the service end to end to make sure that the process and the service works for both parties. Throughout, we would like to incorporate feedback loops. We do this because we want to continuously monitor and learn how each of us are working, and we want to be able to quickly identify any improvements that make the POC more effective or the future service more attainable. Once the proof of concept is complete, typically within a month, we can start to scope the full service. This is where we go through your application catalog with you, identify the different versions, and putting together that rough amount of time required to treat the backlog, repackage it, and also maintain it efficiently going forward. This sizing exercise is what we use to give you the cost estimate as part of the proposal. At this stage, then, you'll have a budget that you can use with the business case that you may or may not write yourselves to get full funding. Now, it's worth pointing out we can also help you with the activity of the business case. We've been through that before and know what bits and pieces are important for people that are signing off on the financial commitments of these services. In the second month, we commence the service as a whole. Typically, this is where we now focus on clearing the application backlog. We do that by prioritizing the applications in the form of remediating the high risks first. So those that we've already detected through the security scanning to have vulnerabilities, or those that you need to meet the objectives of things like other projects. You might have your modernization workplace environment that needs newer applications for a majority of the users receiving those new tools. This is also a great time to add AppAffinity. If we can incorporate it early, then we can hopefully use that to treat some of that backlog early on, and also mean that straight away you benefit from those automated management processes. Once the backlog is complete, we can then start to move into the operational phase. This is really about ongoing proactive management of the application updates, such as the new features coming in, maintaining those critical updates, or working with your project teams as they introduce new applications into the portfolio. Oh, I've missed a bit there somewhere. Anyway, okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to tell you how we would provide the service to you and what sort of procurement options you've got around that. So there are 2 types of procurement. There is time and materials and outcome-based. Each has a different cost model, a different commitment from us to you, and more importantly, a different degree of risk on you in running the service. We're going to look first at time and materials. You start by procuring service tokens. Each token has a monetary value that can be exchanged for our time. The tokens are consumed on a process of each application being packaged, updated, or repackaged to incorporate things like testing from feedback from testing. Typically, most customers would buy a bulk of these tokens and top them up as necessary. We will obviously try and help you work out how many tokens you need based on the application portfolio and the types of activities that you need to do over the time frame of the service. However, because the accurate level of estimating the work only occurs in those discovery workshops, there is a varying level of risk here that might mean that we don't provide you with a completely accurate forecast. As such, if you are trying to secure some sort of stable financial planning baseline to operate this, I would suggest it's probably not the appropriate service for you. Instead, that leads to outcome-based approach. With an outcome-based approach, you still buy tokens and top them up as needed, but we spend longer with you forecasting that service. And we typically try and do that forecast over a 1 or a 3-year period. Doing this enables us to get a much better accurate proposal, and also we can start to take some of that risk away from you. So we can actually look at doing all of the activities incorporated in the price and terms and conditions of the service. So things like testing, deployment out to the Intune or deployment environments. We can factor all of that in and give you one price then for the cost of the service during that term. Right, okay. You will be glad to hear I'm coming to the end of my bit right now. So before I get to the stage, it's late when we do some Q&A, I just want to give you a bit of an overview of the team. It's important for you to be assured around the capability and trustworthiness of this team. They've all been audited to a number of different standards. Firstly, ISO 9001. This means that the products and services are of very high quality. You can always rely on them to deliver to your requirements and objectives with minimal fuss. There's no disruption, we can assure you of that. The systems and processes which they use have all been validated using things like Cyber Essentials to make sure they've got the right technical controls, and the information security governance of the organization has been evaluated using 27001. That means you can be assured that they are capable of providing confidential integrity and high availability of any information assets that they hold or access in your environment. The teams are also UK cleared and security vetted. They've all gone through some sort of assessment of this, be that background checks, SC clearance, or even other industry vetting procedures for areas like policing, healthcare. Fundamentally, they are a highly trustworthy team. Okay, right, so we are on my last slide before I hand over to Steve. So I'm just going to quickly run through what I believe is to be the call to action. We want you to scope the proof of concept with us. It's important that you do that because we want you to see the performance of our service and how good our teams are in helping you meet your application packaging goals. To do that, we just need to identify those 5 applications, preferably those really complex ones that can challenge Dan and his team. And then we can help give you a proposal around what that cost of service would be, and that sit down and go through that detail enabling plan to get it underway. With a proof of concept in place, we can then start to scope that full service and put forward recommendations for your financial budget requirements for a 3-year or even a 1-year full service deal. And again, we want to sit with your senior leadership team so they understand what they're buying, how it aligns to the IT strategy, how it helps them meet those objectives of maintaining the security vulnerabilities across their organization. So that's it. I think at this stage, I'm probably going to shut up now. I hope everything's made sense as to what we do and what we don't do and how the service works. I'm going to hand over to Steve now, if that's all right, Steve. And we'll do a bit of a Q&A at the end. Okay, thanks.
Perfect. So hopefully, like Ben says, before we open up for questions, you've seen that the service will help you to lower the risk of application vulnerabilities, and that will ensure that you can deploy critical updates within the 2-week window. That we will also help you to ensure maintaining robust control of your application portfolio through good configuration management and quality assurance in the packaging process. And more importantly, that this service will enable you to significantly lower the impact on you, your team, and your end users by providing an embedded workforce who are highly skilled, who can help you with the training and best practices and the overall application management service. So with that, we'll open up for questions. If there's any anything that anybody wants to ask, I can see in the chat there's nothing in there. So any thoughts or questions? How does the service provide reactive packaging support? 14-day SLA et al. This could become a resource jam for yourselves as an unplanned activity. Do you have the capacity for this?
So the first thing to note is that all of our packages are employees. We have a significant team of packages. I don't say that lightly. A lot of packaging is outsourced, offshored or nearshored. So we remove all of the constraints and the timing issues around the packaging process itself. But the quality and the rate of throughput is exceptional within our team. We've seen many projects where with an estimated period of X delivery, and we've been able to compress those significantly. I mean, I think the long and short of it is that wouldn't concern us as a team, Malcolm.
I'm glad to that as well, Malcolm, if that's okay. So I obviously, as being Contain and working with these as partnerships to do this packaging, we was also concerned about if we bring opportunities to them, how they scale up. The team has overhead already in the capacity, plus also they have a good recruitment process as well that they've gone through there. So they've got good people and they've got this continuation of bringing people in behind the existing teams as well to kind of meet our objectives. So yeah, that's good. Hopefully that answers your question, Malcolm. Perfect, thanks.
Any other questions, anybody? Ben, did you refer to your experience of this? Is it worth kind of going through that?
Yeah, I mean, some of the guys are here from my previous employer, but we used this service for a number of years and found it hugely valuable in areas when we was constrained by our own resources internally. And also when we had those complex applications that we just couldn't package with people who didn't do the activity frequently enough. So I think a lot of what we speak about in this presentation isn't just presentation information, it's actually real world experience and how this service has supported us through that journey. So yeah, it's been a great experience, that was.